I can. How's it going?
Good. And you?
I'm good. Sorry, I must apologize. I sent you an email saying I was going to be a few minutes late, and I guess you didn't see that.
I didn't see that. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. So
All right.
you are in the garage door repair business, is that right?
Yeah. I mean, we do a lot, but primary is garage doors, full service. But we do everything floor, epoxy floors, garage storage. So everything to do with the garage, and then we do attic efficiency as well. So we do insulation and ventilation in the attics, and then of
Okay.
course attic staircases. We replace them, install them brand new, cut them in. So we're a little bit wider than just doors, but doors is primary. But
Okay.
we've added things along the way.
Okay, so if you're adding staircases to the attic, are you creating rooms in the attic or storage spaces in the attic?
No, it's usually storage. So, like for example, a lot of times in a garage, you just have a portal. You don't really have a pull down, but there's wasted space up there. So we'll install an actual ladder, and then you can deck the area above the garage to use for storage. So that's a type of scenario where we add one. Um, and then, sometimes even in a house, they might have one space, one pull down, but the house is so big that putting one on the other side of the home makes sense, for just easier access. So we'll add one there. But we do repair them. We pull them out and put new ones in all the time when they wear out. So
Okay,
got a little bit of a cold, so forgive me on that. But
no problem. As long as you're not contagious, I'm okay.
at least through the airway, I don't know.
Where do you live? Sorry.
Katy, Texas,
Texas. Okay. I love
outside of
Texas.
Houston.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I've traveled to Texas quite a few times. I tend
Okay.
to we tend to service a lot of the oil fields support companies, so in Texas and Alberta. So, and sorry, how long have you been in business?
I started the door side in 2013,
13
and then we brought in all the attic side of things in 2019.
okay. That's quite a combination, garage and attics. Um,
It gets there's a story behind that. So uh, people a lot of times are like that doesn't seem to go together, but it really does. So
okay.
people are constantly asking us how to make the garage cooler, how to put insulated doors on, that type of thing, and so understanding that just throwing an insulated door on doesn't necessarily fix the garage heat. If the garage and attic are working efficiently, the house is designed to deal with the garage heat. So it would be often a discussion of, really should call someone to come look at your attic, make sure everything's working efficiently up there. And so we would often pass that on and then even not necessarily sell an insulated door, type of thing. And so finally, a friend of mine um, was getting out of the install business and going into total wholesale. And so he asked if he had several trucks and installation equipment, and he asked if I could help him sell it if I know anyone would be interested. And so first I was putting my feelers out for him, and then a friend of mine just says, "Well, why aren't you guys just going to do it?" And so I began to look into what that really looked like, and so it makes sense because now we sell both. It's very easy at the same meeting. Come there for the attic, but before we're done, we're selling new garage door insulation or vice versa. And the conversation actually works really well if you once we understood how it all ties together. So it seems to be like, wow, how'd that happen? But it actually makes a real lot of sense. And our shirts, our company uniforms have both advertised both options. So if we're there for the attic, they see garage doors. If we're there for garage doors, they see attic, and the conversation works really well.
Okay. I understand that you don't like leaving money on the table, and neither do I. When I
Yeah.
started my construction business at 17 years old, we were doing basements, finishing basements to increase cash flow from rental properties. And, in basements, especially higher end rentals, you've got kitchens, bathrooms, flooring, painting, lighting, I mean, everything, right?
Right. Right.
Then when it came time to say, well, your kitchen upstairs kind of needs updating, how about we do that? Oh, what do you guys know about kitchens? And I go, wait a minute, didn't we just build you a
Just
beautiful
install.
kitchen downstairs? We had to break the concrete. We had to bring the supply in. We don't have to do any of that stuff up here, right?
Right.
But we
Right.
still had the resistance of, jack of all trades and master of none. So are you planning on diversifying further, or is that it for you?
I'm never opposed to sorry, not opposed to diversifying more. I don't know how it would continue to tie in. I don't know what else we could bring in that would be smooth, as far as how they work together. We have started a audio visual company. My son and I. My son's my vice president. So we are doing other things, but they aren't tied into the easy lift world. Um, I just don't know what more we could do that wouldn't look really weird, because
Okay.
it already has this strange beast to it. When we first did it, we actually left. It's still an independent company, Easy Attic Solutions, and we were doing them both completely separate. But then, like I said, the conversation was happening so often that we realized they're really one company. Um, so we just went ahead and so even though Easy Attic Solutions has its own website and its own DBA and it's running independent, it's all under my same I'm sorry, incorporation papers, and it just uh, it blended so easily that when we tried to be separate, it actually became confusing. Customers didn't know who they had at their door often. So and we even changed our name for a year. We went to Easy Home Services to try to, okay, so how do we marry these two under one name? But then Easy Home Services got people didn't know what, that really became even weirder. And so we went back to Easy Lift Garage Doors and more, and just feel, well, what's the more about? And now the conversation works really well. And but we, kept our branding the same the whole time, so we didn't lose any of that momentum, and we just, changed our name and then went back, so uh, so
Eh,
it, I would be open to something else as long as it makes sense in the flow. But I didn't want to be all my eggs in one basket, even though garage doors is, I mean, it's pretty recession proof, and it's something that's going to exist forever, and it breaks and it needs work, and you don't have to worry about it, even during all the shutdowns and everything. We were running 100% because it's still a needed. You can't shut it down really.
right,
If someone's door breaks when their car's inside, they need it out, right? So we actually were super busy during. A lot of people were home, so they were spending their vacation money on new doors and epoxy floors, and so we didn't fail. And
right.
so, um, but that's why I've done what I've done to make sure that if something happens, we're not tied down to one thing. And so, it's my son, like I said, the vice president. I have 7 grandchildren. I'm hoping this thing is, generational wealth. That's what
Okay,
I've went out to. So didn't
okay,
start that way. I started as I was pastoring and I needed some part-time income. And so I just did it as self-employment to help pay my bills. I never intended for it to be what it is. I started doing doors in the 80s, so it was always a skill that I had. But so I say that I'm accidentally successful because I had no idea what it meant to actually own a business. I knew how to sell myself and install, and but here we are. So
And how
it's
how long have you been in the construction industry? Since the 80s, you said?
so I got, yeah, right out of high school. I was always in the trades.
Okay,
Then pastored from 96 to 2014, but a lot of times, side work and, use it as separate income. So then when we were in South Carolina, officially I started Easy Lift Garage Doors in 2010 in South Carolina, and then we I was pastoring there, and then we moved to Katy in 2011, and I went to work for another garage door company to get established here. I didn't, and then and again, it was simply making extra money because I full time full time ministry with not full time pay. It's so but working for another company, what happened was I would often have to neglect my bigger responsibilities. I'd maybe have a meeting at the end of the day, and I'm stuck on a job, and it began to conflict my ability to be effective in the ministry. So I realized, I've got to do it on my own just to fit the schedule. I still needed the income, but I needed my schedule to be mine. And so that's really how it birthed. It was simply out of necessity. And I literally scrapped. I had no money to start a business. I didn't have a pickup at the time. I went out and found a used pickup, and I took that pickup and I scrapped all the metal I could load onto the F-150. I literally drive into the scrap yard. My bed was dragging, and pulling a scrap yard. I got $280 from scrap, and I went down, paid Texas. You just have to buy a business license, $16. You don't need any other certification. Because I needed that to go to wholesale. So I went to the wholesale with my new business license, and I bought $280 worth of the most common things, springs and rollers, just loaded my truck up with those, began advertising, and went from there to now, what we are. So when I say it's accident, I'm not exaggerating that.
Yeah.
I did not know what I was doing.
I appreciate you saying that because I speak with a lot of people on TikTok who say, "Oh no, you can't start a business with no cash. You need 50,000, you need $300,000 to start a business." And it's so refreshing to hear your side of the story. And hopefully you don't mind me sharing that portion of what you said, that because I think that will educate or help young people think, hey, I have more opportunities than I feel that I do, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, my
You know,
business started by accident as well. I never planned on starting a construction business. I just wanted to get positive cash flow on the house that I just bought. That's it, right?
yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, I knew how to turn that into money. So you do have to at least know what you're going to do. So if you have very little resources, but you're smart and know your subject, I knew how to turn that into some money, and was able to buy supplies again the next week, and then I was able to buy more again the next week. And, they just, there we
how
go.
did you
So
get your original clients? Were you door knocking or
I went to Groupon.
Groupon? Okay, I
Which
remember
was
Groupon.
really the most horrible experience, but it got our feet in the ground, foot in the door. So it was kind of I wouldn't, I was so against the mold, how to start a business. So on April 1st of 2013, so I chose April Fool's Day because everyone
Mhm.
says it's a fool to even consider this, right? So I'm like, well, fine, we're going to own that. So on April 1st, Groupon begins, and we were offering, you have to, Groupon is a tough thing because you have to give 50% discount to qualify, and then you owe them basically 50% of that even. So you're just giving work away, but it was
Wow.
busyness, busyness and getting my name out there. So that's how we spent the first month, maybe 2 months. And but I realized, man, I'm running crazy. I'm all over the place and still barely making. I'm just not making enough. So then I began to, okay, how do I use Facebook? How do I use social media? Just began to work on my reputation. Got our Google Maps up, and that type of thing, and began to work on reviews. And so just had to pound. I didn't pound the pavement in door knocking, but I had to pound the pavement in every other the social media world. Use what's out there on the internet, and that's where people are finding it. And so and then just make sure that I did have uh, the pride in the trades is gone today, and there's all kinds of argument on that why, but people just don't care anymore. And so there is a reputation for service repair, especially that we're just scan artists, scam artists. And so I that was another thing that I decided I need to, reestablish a service that you can trust somebody. And so that was tough.
Mm,
People are so reserved, and they instantly leave you there to just take advantage of them. And so educating, so I had to earn that customer. My goal was I need a check, yes, but I need a customer more. And because I need their family, I need their neighbors,
mhm.
So I realized right off the bat, you've got to make sure you've earned a friend for life, and being local, I may walk into the grocery store and I'm going to run into you. And I got
Right.
to be able to look you in the eyes and not hide because I ripped you off. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there was a lot to that. And so I went in with purpose. I got to restore the image. I need to pay my bills, and I need to make this thing again. Just I wasn't looking for future other than pay my bills. But out of that, people just we didn't start spending money in advertising until just this year, really.
Okay.
Occasionally we'd throw some money at something, like a group run. I mean, you call it advertising, but we built it on total reputation. And what's happened this year is I realized we've gone as far as we can really on that though, because the bigger you get now, you need to support that. And so I'm at the point where I need at least 3 more trucks in the field, and
Okay.
that
So
means that
where are
means
you now? How many employees? How many trucks now?
we've got one attic truck and 2 garage door trucks, and so those are all in the field. The big problem we have right now is all my techs are cross trained on the whole thing. And so we're at the point where if we're doing an attic install, there could be anywhere from, 3 to 4 hours involved in the job, an hour there, an hour back. That could easily eat up a good half the day. And then they have to get in the garage door world and go try to catch up. And so it's starting to become that's been the problem. I need to grow now, tech wise, and to handle our growth. And
Okay.
so I had to hire someone to find me. All right, get our SEO up. We've got to get that phone has got to multiply quite a bit. And so this is our first time actually with a real SEO budget. And we have a guy who's rebuilding our website. We did our own website on Wix, and it's
Yeah.
been great since 2013. But there's only so far you can go. There's that magic moment. You've either maxed out in your growth, and you got to be okay with that. But you say no to people a lot because you can't handle the schedule. So you've got to try
That's
to stay
gotta
ahead of that.
hurt. That's gotta hurt.
Yeah,
When you're saying
yeah,
no to money, no to a new client, that's gotta hurt.
right. Because if we do a door right, we don't see them for 10 years. There's no residual to this. Every
Right.
day is a brand new day, and I've
Right.
got to get. It's all emergency based for the most part. Yes, when you get out there to fix a broken spring, sometimes you discover your door is actually destroyed. You need to So it turns into stuff, but the original call is I can't get out of my garage, and so it's emergency based. And if you can't handle that, then you don't have the reputation of being able to handle the job.
Okay. So, Adam, out of all the services, all the products in the construction industry, you chose a um, very unique, very narrow niche. Um,
It's even that is everything's been accident. Let me just say that. I was laid off at the time and in the 80s, and trying to find a job. I've been in the trades, saw an advertisement for a garage door technician installer. And I had no idea, but I knew how to swing a hammer and run tools. I thought all you got to do is adapt, right? That's my thinking. So I lied to him. I went to the interview and literally lied about my capability. And I get my first job, and I have to figure this thing out on the job. And the good thing was they sent you by yourself, so it was I
right.
send my guys out in twos for installs, but you're out there by myself. So of course, the first couple of weeks they're just giving me one job a day type of thing, just to see if I can handle it, which was good because I was reading instructions. I was faking it. And but then I learned it and learned how to do it, and I fell in love with it. My son, he looks at me like I'm crazy most of the time because when we're off the clock, and I want to keep talking about the latest technique or the latest this, or he's like, Dad, we closed it, and I get it because the family life, because my daughter's our administrator, his wife, my daughter-in-law is our graphic artist, and she does all of our digital content, and so it is family business, and the family sometimes wants to just act like we're family around the dinner table and not be talking shop constantly. So I'm guilty of, man, I actually really do love it. And since my heart transplant, uh, I've had to get out of the field. That's been tough for me,
Well, a
and because
heart transplant. Don't
yeah,
don't don't
sorry,
skip over that.
I guess, yeah,
That's pretty crucial.
so you'll find more about that on Jim's contractor stories, but yeah, it's so July of 2022 had a heart transplant, and so that was I can't do what I was doing. I can't sling a door anymore. It's brutal what that does to your body. So I'm in the middle of still rebuilding physically. My heart's great, but I can't keep up. I mean, I'm 59 almost anyway. Not that that's necessarily a problem, but you add that to a heart, and it's just not as I'm not as good as I once was, right? So,
Yeah.
um, so I've had to let go of it, and that's been really tough to learn that delegation and but it's actually been to the benefit because this is the year I need to concentrate on building the business. So I wasn't able to do that so much when I was also in the field, so it's been a blessing actually to force me to become a business owner. this 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 accidental success, now I got to actually be able to take it to where it needs to be. But yeah, so I had a heart transplant. I knew in 2005 I was diagnosed that I would eventually need one, but I outlived any expectations. Physically, I never missed a day of, I've worked my whole time, and doctors are always like not able to explain that. And, heart function was low, but I was still doing it, and keeping a pretty aggressive schedule. And then beginning in 2022, I knew it's done. And, so even my family, you think you're ready because we were told that, and so you spend 17 years knowing that that day could come, but you're not ready as much as you are ready. Sure, it's better than those who get an initial, hey, guess what? You're in trouble. You're dying, which we had that conversation when I first got diagnosed. We went through that. So that element, certainly we were ready in that sense. But
Yeah.
I knew, that it was time, and I was hiding it from my wife for a while, and that I knew I was trouble. But then finally, it was pretty obvious, and um, I was at the point once it became obvious. I had to, when I told my wife goodbye, I was still going to work, and I'd leave the house and tell her goodbye. And we knew that was maybe the last one, and we
Wow.
were treating every day like that. And my son everyone was like trying to get me to, you gotta go to the doc, but I had no insurance. That's a whole other story and how this thing even came about. So there wasn't really a lot I could do. I'm like, that we can't do it. There's no transplant in the picture if I don't have insurance. And then finally on the job, me and my son were both on the same job one day, and he's like, "You got to get out of here. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't climb the ladder." And he forced me. You need to get out. And so I went to the doctor that day, my cardiologist, and they said, "Yeah, you're done." Admitted me, and then I came home for a little bit. They thought they had settled me down enough to wait at home, but then they were giving me some, melatonin drip, um, and that wasn't working. I had to go back to the hospital and was told this is it. I'm going home in a bag or with a heart, but I had no insurance
Wow.
still. Long story short, a friend of mine who's an insurance broker found me 100% coverage with no pre-existing qualification situation. The
Wow.
hospital couldn't believe it when I called them and said, "Look, let's," because they were keeping me alive, but they couldn't proceed really with those aggressive steps and preparing for transplant, that they wouldn't even officially put me on the list because I couldn't qualify financially. I mean, that's one of the and so I get the insurance. They had real conversations with me every day. Every day they're like, "You've got to figure this out." They were trying. They were trying to find grants. I mean, everybody was working on it, but they were being honest with me. Look, you're running out of time, and we don't find a way to cover this. This could be it. So I called my friend and just said, "Look, what can be done?" And she found some insurance. Like she got me. It was a Wednesday, I believe it was Tuesday or Wednesday, and so I can get it effective by Monday if you're ready to move forward. $89 a month, and I'm like, well, yeah, let's do this. I
Yeah,
called
my
the
life was
financial
worth
department.
$89 a month. Yeah, I can do
So I,
that.
so I called the financial department of the hospital. I said, I got insurance. Let's move forward. And they're like, what do you mean? I tell them this. Are you sure? And I gave her my broker's number. I said, well, call, make sure. So they called back a little bit later. She says, you're right, you're covered. And they went aggressive at that point into the next level of care. And then I was in the hospital total of 9 weeks. And I'm supposed to, I'm 6'4", so it's a harder match because
Wow.
one of the things you learn is that, your heart develops for the size of your body because it's a muscle. So it's learned how to pump your amount of blood. So you have to have someone who's basically in the same height range. You can't have a 6 foot person's heart in a 6'4", for example. And that,
Right.
so supposedly I was in the outside range of an average male heart. So, and they could put female hearts in. It's not a matter of sex; doesn't matter. It just has to be someone that's the height issue.
Right.
That
And it's
eliminates
hard
it.
to find a 6'4" female.
Right. So you could use a 2 inch variant, so it could be 6'2", 6'6". There's that. You have a little bit of range, but 6 foot honestly is too small. So uh, the good news, some people think it's morbid, and I guess, but they consider Fourth of July harvest weekend nationally. There's just a lot of death over Fourth of July, especially when it falls on a weekend. There's so
Yeah.
much partying from Friday through the end of the weekend, and so they said there's a good chance if you're gonna get it, it's gonna come. And sure enough, 4th of July, I got my call and was in surgery on the next day, and here I am. So
Wow.
yeah, a whole lot of my story.
One of the reasons why I was late, I was actually in part of a protest against our government. I live in Canada, obviously, and we have corrupt leader. Our Prime Minister Trudeau is corrupt, should be in jail.
No,
And and I
no, really?
and that was a protest, leave our kids alone type thing today. And but then I started realize, there's a lot of things wrong with Canada, but there's one thing right. When I had a heart attack in May of last year, there's no questions about insurance. There's no question whether we can fix you. It's, I went from the beach where I was playing beach volleyball in the tournament straight to surgery. Nobody
Wow.
asked me if I had insurance. Nobody cared. It's about you
Yeah,
need to be fixed. You're fixed within 20 minutes,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So one thing about Canada is, we have that going for us. Yes, we pay
yeah.
through our noses for our taxes, but nobody asks questions whether this man's life needs saving, right?
Right.
Unless you're not vaccinated, then we let people die.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. It's amazing how many people we let die because they refuse to put toxic chemicals in their bodies, right?
right.
We let them die.
Yeah,
So, and again, this is the corrupt part of Canada, right?
yeah,
This man should be in jail. I'm surprised he's not yet. But,
yeah. I,
but
not to get too off into the weeds of that, but they forced me to get vaccination to get my heart.
mm,
Uh, I I was anti-vax before anti-vax is cool. Just to be clear, I haven't believed in vaccinating since my kids were coming up because there's just a lot of stuff to it. So that's a whole other discussion. But I wasn't just jumping on the COVID bandwagon. But I was again. We could spend all day on this, I'm sure, but it was a real issue. And so once I've got insurance now. They knew I wasn't vaccinated still on that early journey. Now that okay, well now you have to be vaccinated. I'm like, are you telling me you won't give me a heart for this? And that was they held it over my head.
yeah,
And I debated, talked to my wife. We a lot of debating, and after a couple of weeks of fighting it, they weren't going to let me move forward, and they were sticking their feet in their heels in, and so I finally had to submit to that. Got the stupid first one, and then have not gotten anything since, and they're pissed at that. But what are you gonna do? Come take my heart out now? So, but it yes, government they control us, and insurance is good, like you said in Canada. our insurance sucks out here. The medical world is just a
Yeah.
mess, period. And so, but yeah, it's the same thing. The vaccine still affected a lot of things taking place here in our country as well.
Yeah.
We let a lot of people die.
Yeah. And I just want to mention one thing, then we'll move on. US has been studying the Mennonite community for a very long time,
Uh-huh.
and yet they won't publish any of the reports. So that's kind of twisted, but there's none of the crap that we complain about in
Yeah.
in the Mennonite community. So I'll just leave that alone. So what's next for you in terms of business? We're going to cut out all the other stuff and we'll stitch it together.
I figured you would. By the way, it's the first time I heard any sense of an accent when you said about. You had more of that Canuck about. That's the first one I heard. I would not
Okay.
have guessed you were Canadian until that moment. But um, so what's next is obviously I'm trying to be the business owner. Be the president. Get it. We didn't even have a flow chart. We didn't have an organizational chart. We literally. I have not. I have a thriving business. What looks like from the outside, but it's a mess inside. In house, and so That's what I've been spending really since January. I've just been working on making this solid, making it something I can hand off. Because had I died, had I not come through that, my son would have had a hard time really picking up and making it. He would not have had a clue the mess that I have created. He would not have get through it, and it would have.
Mhm.
He probably would have had to just shut this down and start his own company, and hopefully he can pull on the reputation, to move forward. So that's been my goal, is to make us solid in that sense. Just all the things that needed to be filled that I just wasn't doing, and so I'm working on that. I hope to, and then we're going to continue to develop the audio visual business, and my son is skilled in that, highly skilled in that. So that's where it's come from. We've got all of our equipment, so we can continue to develop that. But if if I had to do a dream, what would I do next? My wife and I have owned and operated 3 coffee houses, and I would love to do that again. But with a venue space, creating something different. You can't compete against Starbucks and all the main. The getting caffeine is not the only answer. The big guys have got that covered. So you have to create something that is people want to be there. And so
Right.
I have a vision in my heart that's still alive. The last time we owned was in South Carolina, so we haven't. I've got all my equipment still. I would love to do that again and spend my retirement days retired as a coffee house owner. So I don't know that that'd be retiring, uh, but yeah, and I love to teach still. I still ministerialize. I don't see myself as a pastor again necessarily, but somehow that whole venue space, creating a different environment. So, I'm not done, and I don't like being idle. But so I need to get this place where it's running solid, and that I could not be present and everything would still be okay. And
Mhm.
that's my goal.
Okay. Going back to the coffee shop, we're working with a client. Actually, there was a story bouncing around of 2 young guys who are going against Starbucks, who are trying to compete against Starbucks. And I believe they have 20 locations so far. But I don't think they're going far enough. Starbucks, I think, is obsolete. I mean, when you walk into the place, it's noisy,
Yeah.
uncomfortable chairs, there's no
Yep.
ambiance. I mean, it's just a horrible design from my
Right.
perspective. From a client-centric perspective, I think it's a horrible design. So we're
Yes.
working with a client who originally wanted to buy a coffee shop, and they wanted to sell it for $800,000. And I thought, what exactly are you buying here? Everything's leased, and what are you buying? Then I suggested, why don't we just start, a coffee shop, find a better location. Let's design the ambiance from a client perspective,
Yeah.
right? The grinders, because as soon as you walk into Starbucks, that grinder drives me nuts. If you're on the phone, you can't hear anything, right?
Right.
And to me, that's not putting the client first. That's putting efficiency and profits first, right? Get that freaking client grinder in the back parking lot somewhere. Make noise in the back parking lot, but not inside the restaurant to disturb the clients. There should be different lighting modes. There should be trees inside. There should be trees on the patio. Should be little lights, because single, two divorces, I'm always looking for a nice place to take someone on the first date.
Yeah.
Am I going to take them to Starbucks? I have to drive almost an hour to find a place that has half decent ambiance, right?
Right. Right.
So I think if you design it from a client's perspective, to go back to your vision and dreams, I think you would have something there. And I think people would spend more time if they're sitting in, a lazy boy chair, reading their news or reading their emails while enjoying a coffee, and
Right.
where it's quiet, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's exactly it. That venue, um, you have to put reason people they want to be there. That's the only way you survive right now. The big dogs are out there, and if your idea is I'm just going to compete caffeine shop to caffeine shop,
yeah, it
like
doesn't.
Starbucks or hate them, they're going to kill all of us.
Yeah,
And so a drive through, it doesn't matter what you do, you're still competing against the guys who own it all. So what do? You have to create an environment, like you're saying, that people want to be there.
like a
The
second home
name,
or third home. Yeah.
so the name that we used in South Carolina, which will be used again if I ever get to rebirth, is the Gathering Place. To create that place, like you said, where we actually had purposely had date nights. We had enough ability to seat 250 people on any kind
Wow.
of event, and
Okay.
then and the building we could shrink it down to the day-to-day operational feel where it didn't feel too big, and then be able to open it. And we had a sound stage, and so we were able to do a lot there. And what happened was we just lost the building, and so we had to shut that one down. But we brought in uh, marriage, teaching, and we'd hold a date night where you can come in, and we catered it, and we had people dressed up in good serving outfits, and we had desserts and stuff, and then just marriage skills, for example, would be in just all kinds of different things, and then we would host corporate meetings where we'd actually shut down for a private party, and people would bring in. When you have 250 potential seating,
Hmm.
we'd host a breakfast, and guys would bring in a corporate business meeting. So creating that place where it's very multi-purpose and yet doesn't feel like it's a multi-purpose room. You got to be able to still meet the day to day. We create a bar. I wanted that feeling like Cheers, where you sit around and everybody knows your name, and we literally throw a towel over our shoulder and act like a bartender, which you are, whether there's alcohol or coffee, you're still attending bar. And
Hmm.
we'd engage people, but they had places to go sit as well. So people meet for lunch. We had a lot of people work local in the area, and so their spouse or significant other would maybe come in and grab lunch, and we'd serve good food, and they'd meet for lunch, and you'd watch the one that we knew where they worked, and the other person would go on with their day. And so we had an environment that was very inviting, and that's, if you don't create that, why are they going to show up to you?
Yeah.
Because they know Starbucks, and so they don't know anything else. So,
Hmm.
and Starbucks burns their coffee. People, that's a very common. Everyone knows that they take all their coffee beans to the max, which there's a level where it tastes bitter, and then you have to get past that to the next. And so you walk in, you smell it smells burnt, and so they've set the bar. This is the standard for coffee, and it's nasty,
Hmm.
really, truthfully. So yeah, so there's all my dreams.
Okay. I find that a lot of entrepreneurs tend to have a lot of shiny things. And I guess you and I are no different.
What
Um,
do you mean?
well, because you run a business, but yet you're thinking about a coffee shop, a separate
Uh-huh.
business, right?
Yeah.
Why are we not satisfied with the businesses that we run today and take that to the next level? Why do you think that happens?
That's a good question, and that's even a good question to myself. Uh, I am very satisfied with this business I've created for sure, and I want it to be. Um, so much more, but I'm looking to, I love people. And so I guess that's the reason if I could do both of them, if I was, capable of, I don't know that I'll ever fully step away from this business as far as, but how much activity I put into it. The coffee shop, I really loved Cheers. I watched it. I
Because
love
of
that
the
everyone knows.
interaction with other people?
Yeah. And so
Okay.
as a young person watching that, that's just so cool where they knew each other and I always loved that sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name, right? And
Right.
so when I had the opportunity to do the coffee shop, that was in there, and creating that environment was a blast, and to be able to know your client. So I'm very client, which I'm sure is why, I mean, it's part of me. It's ministry too. It's I love people and I love to engage people and I love to help people and just share life with people. So I guess that's why I'm attracted to it. It just creates another opportunity for me to interact with my community. Um, but I haven't started it. It's there, and it's this. If everything else was perfect and going well, then I'd jump off that. I'm not planning on starting next week. And
Mm.
I want this to be all that it can be to hand to my family and be able to say, look, take it, go as far as you can now with it. And my oldest grandson is 12, and so he went on his first job with us a couple weeks ago. Went and spent the day with my son, and then I actually met them on one of the jobs and had the customer take a picture with all three of us there and posted it. But this third generation coming up, and so he's got three boys. My daughter's got one boy. Her boy's the youngest of all my grandkids, and so they all love it, talk about it. Of course, they're all around it because all of us are involved. They all know how to answer the phone. It doesn't matter what age they're. 12 is the oldest down to three, and they'll play with my youngest grandson. Will pick up his fake phone. Hey, thank you for calling these garage doors, and they play this role. They hear it so much that it truly. I don't think they think there's another option for them. And I would love that it's awesome for them, but go find your own life too if it's not. But I would like to create that. Yes, here's a place for you, and something that can hand down. I don't, I'm not building it to sell. Of course, my son, when he takes over, can do whatever he wants at that point. But I hope it's something that's just solid. That's just good for the family for generations.
I invest a lot of time on Facebook groups. One of the groups that I manage is Construction Fails, Fun Fails. Are you a member of that group? Do you invest time on Facebook? No.
I do a lot of Facebook. Yeah, so I don't know the group though.
One of the points that I want to make is we always have this dream that we're going to build this business and eventually our sons or our family member is going to take over the business. But a lot of times the family member or the son looks at how hard the owners are working and they say, I don't want any part of that. All of a sudden, that
Yeah,
dream of passing it on evaporates. And now we're shutting down businesses that have been around for 20 or 40 years. And I think that's a crime. That's so
yeah,
sad because we
yeah,
build a lot of credibility and a lot of trust with all these clients. Now we're shutting down businesses. So I'm trying to create a community on TikTok to go in and help these business owners instead of shutting it down, to partner up with a new partner, take it to the next level, sell it for 10 or 12 million dollars, because that's an actual case study. Um, and at least that business owner is walking away with 5 million instead of zero, right?
right, right.
So, and that's kind of the mission that I'm on right now, right?
Yeah,
Because
and I think it's a good mission. It's a need because if you're only building for the sake of handing it off and there's no one to hand off to, and you close, something is that's sad and it's hurtful to the client base. You
yeah.
want to be there for so helping people build a company that can be sold or handed is very critical. I'm blessed in the sense that I always dreamed of my son being part of it. He wasn't he didn't come on until 2016. And I had asked him a couple times. He was uh, his role at that point for NRG Stadium, which is where the Texans play. He was head of all the audiovisual department. So he had a key literally to every building of that stadium, and and he was involved. If there's more than just football that goes on there, I mean, it's 24 hours a day. There's stuff, weddings to corporate meetings to, just anything going on there. And
Hmm.
so when I say his audiovisual background, I mean, it's huge.
It's
For the
pretty
Super Bowl that was held at
substantial. Yes.
yeah, for the Super Bowl that was held there, actually, he was the only tech within the audiovisual department of NRG that was on the field the whole game, because his role was to make sure that all the mics and ref mics, and so I mean, he had access in a life that was cool. I mean, it was cool, but he was working 80 hours a week. He was killing it, and so he's got this young family, and so finally it came to me, and I can't keep doing this. My kids are growing only part of their life, and so he asked to come on. So and then people are like, well, how do you and your son work so well together? And we're not. We bump our heads once in a while for sure, but we do have a relationship that's solid, and so I don't think I'm gonna have that problem. I Again, he doesn't live, breathe, eat, and sleep garage doors like I do, but he definitely wants a successful business, and he works hard to make it that way. So uh, I don't think I'm gonna have a problem with that, and but I've let him know once it's handed to you, whatever you want to do with it. I don't think he has a desire to sell it either. That's where he is currently. But who knows? Someday it may. If the price is right, pretty much anybody will sell, I guess. But it is not. The price wouldn't be right for me. I wouldn't sell it. It would. I guess unless Thomas said he'd rather have that than to have a company. That'd probably be the only reason that. Okay, well, here's the generational wealth past this direction. Then, but it would take a lot for me to get rid of this. Mainly because I have pride in it. I think it's important to have something that still exists that cares about customers, and this not out there a lot. So
Hmm. But
it
wouldn't
would be hard for me.
Right. I know it would be hard. And I have this conversation a lot with business owners, and they always feel the same way you do. And the question that I ask is, you're very passionate about the business you created, but if you sell this business and you start another one, aren't you going to be as equally passionate about the new one? Because
Yeah.
now you've gotten rid of all the mistakes that you made, and when you start a new company, you're starting it with a lot more experience and less mistakes, right?
It's I won't tell you that doesn't. There is that where I'm like, man, to do it again, I would. There would be so much, even simple things like easy lift garage doors. We'll use the letters easy. That's cool. That'll set us apart. What do people search for when you tell them where easy lift garage doors are? They type in the word easy. I
Right.
should have at least named ourselves the word easy lift with a logo of the letter EZ. I didn't do that. And our logo is EZ, but that's also our name. Uh, that's a simple mistake, but it's a big mistake because we
Mhm.
we don't have that search power unless someone knows to use the letter EZ. You
Yeah.
know, so when we give our
And
website out, we go easy lift garage doors, the letters EZ.
yeah, and
So simple
easy
things
is
to
not a
big things.
search term,
Right,
right?
right, right.
So,
So simple stuff like that, to big stuff,
yeah,
but that's all understanding marketing, and so yeah, I've learned a lot for sure that I would have done it absolutely would have done it differently, and I would do it absolutely differently on the next venture.
right.
Um, so yes, there's a part of me which you can just watch it and start over for sure. Um, but I don't know. I don't know. It's my baby.
Mhm. And are the truck wrapped? Do you
Yeah, oh
believe
yeah.
in truck wrapping the trucks?
We just did that this year too. That's part of that step is realizing we needed a brand. Our brand wasn't people didn't know it. We had the typical magnet on a truck. Dan Antonelli, kick charge Dan Antonelli. If you want to read someone who's killing it in the marketing world is kick charge Dan Antonelli, um, the guru in branding. His book called Not Branded, Not Blanded. One of the most impactful books I've read. This guy, I've had direct conversation with him. We personal conversation even. But his help, his expertise on how to stand out is critical. This guy understands branding like no one I've ever read or watched, and so you can see him on Facebook. You can, easy to find. So again, knowing we need to go to the next step, we realize we need to also set ourselves apart, and how to do that. And so we bit the bullet at the beginning of the year, wrapped the first one. I think it was December last year, and then wrapped the second one. And no, I think it was January and February. It was close. I mean, it's not cheap for sure, but we did it. It changed everything. I mean, if there's one thing we've done right this year, that was for sure it to wrap our vehicles
Okay.
and get our logo. We did a rework of our brand look for sure, and we brought a mascot logo in. He's the guy in a green uniform, easy lift hat with his thumb up. You know, it's a pretty good mascot, I believe, and now his name is Mo. So we use him in a
Mo.
lot of our promo, and you know, Mo's pro tips, Mo this, Mo. You know, so we've gotten ourselves this character, and that's being known. People are seeing that all over the place. So yeah, I'm. Anyone asks me now, should I? Absolutely, don't even hesitate. Now, don't go cheap though, because that's a killer too. One of the things that Dan says is, what's the most expensive wrap you'll ever buy? The one you spent the least amount of money on, and that may be murdered a little bit how he's the phrase, but his point is, you go cheap and then you have to redo it anyway because it didn't do you
Right.
anything. You spent $4,000. That's
Lost
Marcus Garvey.
opportunity costs. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
and
most companies, most business owners don't consider lost opportunity costs.
yeah,
So send me your logo. I'll include it as part of this video, because I think that's crucial in terms of your brand. Are you keeping track of lead counts that come in from your trucks?
yes, as best we can. One thing another one of those things you learn. We put our regular number on the truck. We should have put a different tracking number. Again, it's one of those things you learn. And I don't even know why that got overlooked, honestly, and because that's one of the things that Dan even talks about. It didn't happen for some reason until it was, oh, what did we do? It was done, and my son was one that finally said, well, I thought we were going to put different number on there, and it got somehow that one just got
Mm,
overlooked. So it's been hard to track it, but we hear people, we ask, how do you find us? We just had to make sure we ask, how'd you find us? I saw your truck at the gas station. I saw you this. We have people literally, it was funny. My son the other day, I get a call and says, hey, I'm right behind your truck. I need you, come follow me to my house. I got a garage door problem. Well, I realized my son had just texted me that he was going home, and this guy lived around the corner from him, actually. So it was really timing was prayer. I said, well, hold on one second. You're actually probably behind my son, I think. I called Tom. He says, yeah, this guy's actually honking it right now. Let me pull over. So
mhm.
he didn't realize. So I laughed because I know it's what it is. So when Thomas calls me back, I said I was on the phone with him, and he thought he was talking to you, and but anyway, he flagged him down. Uh, so we're getting a lot of that. It has we know that it has improved us just from people saying that's how they've found us, and I wish the number would be there. We can be absolutely accurate, but we have a lot of those stories. Oh, I saw you guys, especially when they're both parked. They'll have to meet up for lunch sometimes, and so now you got two. If you ever see our truck wrap, it's on our Facebook. They're pretty. You can't miss them, and so when they're both together at a parking lot, a gas station, or lunch, we you watch the phone will tick.
Yeah.
That one's funny to me.
Yeah, we try and do a convoy of three or more vehicles. That's when you really get attention. So it
Yeah,
sounds like you need some water.
yeah,
Adam, a pleasure talking to you, a pleasure learning more about your business. Let's stay in touch. Let's promote our businesses together, and let's get
yeah,
our names out there.
yeah.
Any
Absolutely.
final words?
I've been fighting this off for the whole. You can tell it's caught up to me. Final words. Dream big, and go after. I know that's a people say that constantly, but I think that every single one of us, every single person on the face of the earth, I believe, has a dream inside them. And a lot of times they've been told that's a stupid dream. And for example, people are like, you're foolish to go after this. That's why I chose April 1st. It's embrace. If it lives in you, I think you have to at least exhaust it.
Yeah.
At least go after it till it does fail. That way, and I don't believe it's going to. I don't think that. I know it sounds weird. Tell them to go after it till it fails, but I think how do you shut that thing down? So if something lives in you, you've got to go after it against all odds, against all counsel that says you're crazy. A great story, real quick, is oh, now I forgot it's an HVAC company. Not Goodrich. Dang it. Anyway, the guy tells a story of he grew up. His dad was the servicer of the brand of HVAC unit, and they've taken that brand and made their company now. I just can't think why it slipped. But he grew up going out with his dad, but then there came a point and so he became trained and certified as a technician. Then that company went bankrupt, the manufacturer. So he wanted to buy it, and because it was personal to him. And people, he tells the story how everybody, his lawyers, his financial, they're all like, this is foolishness. They're bankrupt. But he's like, I want that name. I want to restore that thing to its glory. And his story is fantastic. Of had a dream, and against all odds, it's now one of the biggest, baddest HVAC companies out there. And again, he went against every counsel because he lived in him. I think you have to know what that is. What's living in you, and pursue that. Don't waste time on anything else.
Yeah.
Life's too short.
You only live once, right?
Yeah.
Wise words. Thank you so much for investing the time with us. Let's talk again soon.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.